Hey there folks, this is Paul, talking about A Course in Miracles topics. I thought I'd share a little forgiveness tool that you could use, might be helpful. I've used this several times and it can be quite effective. So let's say that you're in a state of fear and you're worrying that something's going to happen or someone's going to do something, and usually worried about the future, what's going to come down the line, if this and this happens, or someone's going to do this next week or whatever. It always seems as if the reason that you're afraid is because of such and such is going to happen. So you're starting to picture, that's going to happen to me, and it's making me afraid. The idea of it's making me scared. Such and such is going to do this, so I'm afraid of them doing this. So it always seems at first in fear as though you're afraid of all these things outside you that are looming over you and threatening you and seeming to be the cause of your fear. So it's like you've got all this sense of they have power over me, and they can do things to me, and my body's going to do this and that, and the doctor's going to tell me this and that, and the world is going to do this and that if this thing happens or whatever. So then you become afraid, and you're having this perception that seems as if I'm afraid because of these things seeming to happen or threatening to happen, or just me worrying that they might happen. But this is all backwards. This is all a lie. This is all a cover-up. None of those things are the cause of fear. They are what the world looks like when you're looking through a filter of fear, where having fear in your mind changes your perceptions and makes it seem as though external things suddenly randomly start becoming scary. And as you get into fear, you tend to project a lot, you tend to believe a lot that there's something outside you that's going to do something, and it's the reason why you're scared. And the more scared you become, the more that you might notice you'll start picking out things from your environment and starting to worry about those as well. You're adding to the list of all the reasons why you're afraid. But the list is bullshit. The list is totally made up, and not one thing on the list is the real reason why you're scared. So the first step is to tell yourself all the reasons why. None of these reasons are causing you to be afraid. I'm not afraid because of what the doctor said. I'm not afraid because of the weather. The animals outside are not scaring me. What's happening at my job is not making me worried. You've got all these senses of cause and effect going on. Outside things. So you need to dismantle all these sort of incoming causes that you have believed in. Now you're perceiving that they are actually doing this. So you got to convince yourself to stop believing that any of these causes are actually causing the fear. It's more that these things are starting to look as though they're causing the fear because of the fear. The fear is causing you to see the world as though it is frightening. So you dismantle all the fears, which strips away from the fear all of these ways that the fear has been projecting. It's been extending itself. It's been pointing a finger at something else, somewhere else, someone else, to be the cause of the fear. These are all distractions. They're all decoys, and they're all ways to defend against the fear. And so in a way, in order to try to cover up the fear, you project it out and try to pin its causality on someone else or something else. It's a way of denying that you're actually in fear. And now you're even more scared. So if you were to take away all of your beliefs that this fear is being caused by anything that you're aware of, just strip them away one by one. I'm not afraid because of that. That person's not scaring me. This fear is not being caused by that thing happening. This fear did not come from anyone else. The origin of the fear is not outside of me. If you take away all these supporting props that are trying to tell you what is putting the fear there, you get rid of all of them, you're going to end up in a condition where you're kind of empty-handed, and you've got this fear still, but now you recognize that it's not being caused by anything that you're aware of. And that's an interesting position to be in, because now you're going to start wondering, well, what is causing this fear then? Where's it coming from? If that thing is not causing it, and that thing's not causing it, and they didn't make it happen, and this future event isn't stimulating it, and I just have the fear, and I can't see where the fear is coming from, where does it come from? How is it showing up? One of the side effects of doing this is that you start realizing that your fear, because you're taking it back in a way, you're stopping projecting it, your fear is not causing all these bad things to happen. So I'm not afraid because that thing's happening. Sort of tells you that my fear is not able to cause that thing to happen. So then what you want to get to is the fear is not a cause. The fear, in fact, is just an effect. And there's a cause somewhere that's hidden that you're not seeing, that is causing the fear to appear. But if the cause is not any of these outside things, and none of them are causing the fear, where is this hidden cause? So if you can recognize now, strip away any belief that the fear is causing something, like I'm so afraid that such and such is going to happen, and therefore I'm da-da-da-da. My fear is not causing this. My fear is not causing that. My fear is not causing that. My fear doesn't cause anything. My fear is a result and an end result of something that came before. There was something not external that happened in my mind before I went into fear, and before I started perceiving and believing that the fear was coming from all these outside places. There was a perceptual issue in my mind that put me into fear. And that means that my fear, as an effect, is actually a way to cover up and deny and hide something behind it that came before it that is causing it. And what that is unconscious guilt. If you were not guilty, you would have no reason to be afraid of punishment. If you were not guilty, you'd have no reason to feel that any kind of attack is justified. You would not be threatening yourself because you wouldn't be believing that, oh, I'm guilty and I deserve to suffer, I should be punished. And so you wouldn't be threatening to hurt yourself, making yourself afraid and then projecting it on other people. So the guilt came first, before the fear, and then you put fear on top of the guilt to hide the guilt, to block it from your awareness, and to make it unconscious. So if you get rid of all the causes and reasons for what you think is causing the fear, to realize that those are not, you uncover the fear and see that the fear is just sitting there by itself as an effect, not doing anything, not causing anything. The only place left to look for the cause is within. And because you now don't have all these other things barricading the fear and disguising the fear, and you now can see the fear is just an effect and it's coming from somewhere, you now can look, where is it coming from? And your mind will now be able to look where the fear is coming from, and it's in you. And this will make the unconscious guilt come back into your conscious awareness. It's removing this blockage, this denial, this belief that fear is causal, fear is the one that's doing everything, fear is the problem. It is not. It is a cover-up, and behind this facade of fear that you were using to protect yourself from guilt, there is this guilt sitting there waiting for you to be aware of it once you get past this denial. And then it will come into your conscious awareness, and you'll suddenly feel guilty. You'll be like, oh, I'm not actually afraid, I'm feeling guilty. Because now you've actually brought it back into awareness, you've increased awareness by removing this block. And now you think that my issue is, I'm guilty. And I feel guilty. What do I do about this guilt? And you might then find that your guilt starts trying to project itself. It starts trying to displace itself. It starts trying to find causes outside of you for why you are guilty. Somebody else decided that you're guilty. You did something and now you're guilty. You caused something and now you're guilty. And so you find that you have, again, besides the guilt, you have all these ways that the guilt sort of expands out with your projection, and now you're perceiving it in all kinds of places externally, and starting to believe that this guilt is being caused by all kinds of stuff outside of you. And this again is a way of defending against the guilt, to keep it and to deny it. So you've got to do the same thing with the guilt. Tell yourself that all these reasons why you think you're guilty are not the reason why you're guilty. They are not the cause of you. They're not making you guilty. That person is not making you guilty. That thing over there is not making you guilty. You're not guilty because of this and that and the other. All the things that you're aware of probably are not the cause of the guilt. So you dismantle all these ideas and beliefs and tell yourself and convince yourself, I am not guilty because of any of these things. And recognize none of these things are causing the guilt. You end up with the guilt itself without knowing where it's coming from. Where is the guilt coming from? I seem to still feel guilty, but I can't tell what's causing it. And then look at the fact that perhaps this guilt is not causing anything. This guilt is not causing you to be afraid. This guilt's not causing you to be hurt. It's just some guilt sitting there. Maybe the guilt is an effect. It's an end result being caused by something hidden that you're not conscious of, not aware of, that's been denied. And if this guilt is just an effect with no consequences, the guilt isn't really the problem. It must be something that has come before the guilt that is causing the guilt. So what could that be? Well, once you get down to where you can recognize that I don't have any explanation for why I'm guilty, I'm not aware of a cause, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, the only place left to look is within. You then look within at the possible cause of the guilt, and your mind will tap into the sin that was hidden behind the guilt. The guilt was made to cover up the sin. Guilt is just another form of denial where you're pretending that you didn't want to sin and that you're now feeling guilty and remorseful and you didn't want to do it and you didn't really mean it and blah blah blah, as if to say you did not intend to sin, but behind it there is an actual belief that you did sin and you have done something bad and you deserve to be guilty. And that's what caused the guilt to show up, was when you thought, I'm not going to forgive myself, this sin is not forgivable, so I am just going to go into guilt instead. And the guilt will try to hide and cover up my sinfulness. Just get rid of some of this hot air. La, 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 la. Open. Air conditioning. So much better. Okay, sorry about that. So you tap into this sin, and now you actually could become aware of that you feel sinful. You become aware this sin comes back into your conscious awareness, and you feel sinful. You feel like you did something really bad, and you're ashamed, and you committed some kind of crime, and it may even feel like, because of the severity and the weight of it, you feel like you should die because of how it condemns you so much. And it's such a heavy self-condemnation and an attempt to really put yourself down. It's pretty nasty sometimes, and it could be quite vicious. And it's been hiding behind the guilt. And the sin is gonna say the reason why you're sinful. And it's gonna point fingers, and it's gonna try to say, you're sinful because God decided that you're sinful. Or you're sinful because you did this and that, and you did this and that. And it's gonna have all these reasons why you're sinful. In other words, what is causing the sense of sinfulness? And you have to realize that none of these things are true. It's another layer of distraction and denial, trying to defend against the sin and bolster it by saying that it's being caused by all these things that you did. Which you didn't do. So now you've got to dismantle all these projections of sin where you believe that it's caused by something other than yourself. Get to believing that that's not the cause. I'm not sinful because of that. That's not making me sinful. That doesn't prove that I'm sinful. This isn't the cause of my sinfulness. To the point where you end up with no cause for why you're sinful. And so now you could look at the sin and say, well, this sin doesn't seem to be being caused by anything. Nothing seems to have happened that can explain what is making me sinful. I didn't sin, recognizing that this was just a dream. If you did anything wrong, it was just in a dream. It hasn't happened to anything real. Nothing real's been affected. No one's ever been really hurt. So you have not done anything. So why is there sin if you haven't done anything? There's no cause for it. There's no reason to justify it. And in seeing that, there is no reason to believe that you're sinful. You can tap into what is behind the sin, because the sin is also a denial that is trying to cover something up. Behind the sin is reality. The sin is not being caused by anything, because the sin is bullshit. There is no cause of sin. You have not separated from God. You haven't sinned. And it's just been there as a way to try to hide the fact that you are innocent and you cannot sin. Behind the sin, there is the recognition that you are still innocent. You're still as innocent as you were when God created you. Nothing's changed. You're not, you haven't done anything at all. In reality, God is still perfectly unharmed and happy, loves you totally. And in recognizing that, you are recognizing the atonement. You're getting into this perception that, recognizing your innocence, that you never did sin. And because you didn't sin, you're still holy. You're still 100% as God created you. And now, because you don't have any way to justify the sin, and you've got rid of all the causes and the belief that you did anything, all the justifications and all the stuff that supported the sin and made it into a thing, you've stripped away all the reasons why you believe you're sinful. And now you're getting into, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't accept the atonement. I don't have any objections. I don't have any explanations for why I'm guilty or sinful. I don't have anything left pointing in another direction, trying to tell me that I don't deserve love or that I can't be forgiven. And so when you don't have anything left blocking you from the atonement, now you're going to be willing to accept God is loving me right now. I am 100% loved. God is totally happy. Nothing has happened. This was all just a dream, and I didn't ever do anything. There's been no real consequences. I've never hurt anyone. I've never sinned, and I've never caused anything bad to happen, ever. And God loves me still because I'm completely innocent and holy and forgiven, and I never was accused. I just accused myself falsely for something I didn't do. And I now can open up to accept and receive love from God, because it's now in the atonement now that you're no longer having walls and barriers blocking you from allowing yourself to accept and receive love. It is now that love can come in and you can receive healing from God. The atonement can be said to cure. This is when you get cured. And in the recognition that you never did anything, all basis for any belief that you ever were sinful and guilty is erased. There's no longer any foundation for believing it. There's no justification. There's no reasoning. There's no explanation for why you should be afraid, why you should be guilty, why you should be sinful. There's just nothing left. All that remains is the truth. Only the truth is true, and in seeing that, you will be very, very relieved. You'll probably have tears of joy. You'll be very happy to realize that you didn't hurt God, that nothing's been hurt, that you're not guilty, and God wants you back. He is welcoming you with open arms, and He loves you totally, and He's laughing at your belief that you ever did anything. And that reunion with God is absolutely amazing and will heal you. And now you're receiving a miracle. And now that you've received this truth about you, that you are holy and innocent and never sinned, instantly it makes you willing to also believe that this must be true of everyone else as well. Whatever's true for you, you believe in it. You believe it's true for everyone. Everyone is as deserving of love as you are. And now you're willing to go help others to come to that same awareness and to remind them of what they may be resisting, their innocence and their holiness. You can now give the miracle that you have received. You can heal their mind by not believing their belief that they're sinful and guilty and should suffer. You weaken their mind's belief system just by your presence, by your expression of love, and thereby help them to awaken and heal because of your willingness to receive love and give it. Giving and receiving are one. Miracles are received and given. The atonement is received and given. It has to be shared in order to receive it. So if you go through this kind of a process or something along these lines, it helps you to sort of backtrack and deprogram all these steps that you've gone into, attacking yourself with sinful beliefs, going into guilt, becoming afraid of punishment, all this stuff that you've done to yourself because of your mind believing all these things are true of you, and then all the ways that you bolstered and supported these beliefs by projecting them and then believing that all kinds of other things are causing these things, not me. I didn't put the guilt there. I didn't put the sin there. I didn't make myself afraid. It was something else, someone else. They're doing it to me, blah, blah, blah. You have to get out of that victim mode and strip this stuff down and come to realize that it's all coming from myself. I started out the whole thing by believing that I was sinful, and then I made myself guilty, and then I gave myself reasons to be afraid, and then I projected them, and then I made myself suffer, tried to make myself punished. Secret of salvation, you're doing it to yourself. So if you can reverse all these layers of denial, projections, reinforcements, ways that you try to keep from uncovering what came before, dig out in your mind by isolating, getting rid of all possible causes and reasons, so you end up with there's no possible cause of this except that there must be some cause in my mind somewhere, and then getting in touch with that, bringing it into awareness, get to the next step, bring it into awareness, and then gradually you are removing the blocks to awareness of love's presence. And so take it all the way to the point of the atonement. This doesn't mean that you have to like accept the whole atonement for all time and eternity and be done with everything. If that's not your right time to do that, you can do it on a specific individual issue about a specific person, seemingly, or a particular belief that you have about yourself, or whatever. You can do it on one issue and go through the steps, but make sure you go all the way past the sin to the point of realizing that you did not sin, because that's where you really change your mind. That's where you get out of the ego thought system into God's thought system. That's where you make the switch. That's where you step out of the tiny mad idea, separation, and the thought of being sinful. You got to get out of the sin in order to get out of the ego. And then you can be in the atonement truth and receive love and healing, get cured, and then cure other people. It is the privilege of the forgiven to forgive other people. It's the privilege of those who have been healed to heal others. It's the privilege of those who have received miracles to give miracles to others. I've used this process on some really big stuff to do with particular people, stuff that I never thought I'd get past, and it worked. I did this on a long-standing, heavily guilt-laden sin from years ago that took frickin' couple decades to get past, and it wasn't until I got all the way to that atonement moment that I finally could accept that I didn't do anything. And because I didn't do anything in reality, it just wipes out all possible reasons why you would keep holding it against yourself. And then you're set free, and now you are finally cured, because you can finally then let go of it. You can't let go of it until you can let go of the sin. There is no sin. What if you look within and saw there is no sin? Look behind the sin to find yourself. I'm going to stop there. Hope this helps. Hope you can use it. See you again. Bye.